Player Mesh. Good evening, everyone. My name is Grant, and I cordially invite you into the ROM Hack Room, the series where we look at the best, the worst, and the weirdest ROM hacks available. On tonight's episode, we'll be looking at Metroid Rogue Dawn. Now, Metroid is one of our favorite series here at Player Mesh, and since Metroid is a mainstay of the ROM hacking community, we thought it would be fitting to have the very first episode be Metroid-based. A big shout out to our friend Sid Clem for recommending this awesome hack to us. Now, what exactly is Metroid Rogue Dawn, and what does it consist of? In short, it's a hack that completely revamps the original Metroid on the NES to give it entirely new level design, music, graphics, and more. There are even some new collectible items that weren't in the original game. Besides being an essentially brand new game, Rogue Dawn is significantly larger than the game it was based on. The original Metroid had 188 screens, which for the time was very impressive. However, Rogue Dawn ups the ante significantly and has 726 screens, which is almost 4 times the amount of the original. There have been multiple iterations of the hack. The 1.21 version, the latest and most likely final version of the game, came out in March 2017, and also is the one that this episode is based off. As each iteration added new features and fixed glitches, we recommend playing 1.21 for maximum enjoyment. The premise of the hack, as paraphrased from the README file, is that you take on the role of Dawn Aaron, the first and only known human member of Ridley's faction, captured and raised by him from an early age. Ridley molded and manipulated her, turning her into his ultimate dark operative. Primed, yet untested, she is sent out on her Zero mission to retrieve a newly discovered biological specimen in the possession of a Federation research crew orbiting planet SR-388. The author of the hack, Grimlock, states that the game is intended as a prequel, taking place just before the original Metroid. They also state the story in the Metroid 1 manual is adhered to closely in order to ensure the prequel works seamlessly with it, including the theft of the Metroid capsule. The music in the game is excellent and fits the mood well. The entire soundtrack is completely new, consisting of 18 songs. The original sound effects, however, have not been touched, and this is definitely a good thing, I feel, as they're incredibly iconic, and omitting them would have been a pretty bad choice. In regards to the hack's length, just like the original, it is fairly lengthy. It took me around 4 hours to beat, getting a little over 50% of the item's collection rate. Just like every other Metroid game, the first time through will most likely take you the longest. I feel that if I went through it a second time, I could probably cut this time in half. One of the main things that makes Rogue Dawn more accessible and inviting than the original game is the inclusion of a built-in map. Not only do you have a mini-map in the top left corner near your energy and missiles, but by pressing the start button, you're able to pull up a full map. The map also includes where bosses and main items are located, which for me was very helpful on my first time playing through. While this may only be a basic-looking map of the area, I found the general outline to be incredibly useful for figuring out where I had already been. The original Metroid game really would have benefited from a feature like this. Now, what about the gameplay? Fortunately, in my opinion, this is probably the strongest aspect of the hack. Rogue Dawn doesn't try to reinvent the wheel, leading to a game that plays very similar to the original. In fact, in the README, the creators address the question, why didn't you do X, Y, or Z with the game? Now, to directly quote their answer verbatim, they said, "It's important to remember that this is a modification of the original Metroid developed for the Nintendo Entertainment System 30 years ago. We adhered to the limitation of the original system to ensure that it would work on original hardware. This includes the limited grid system with which the Rogue Dawn world is built on." Despite these limitations, Rogue Dawn still makes interesting changes and additions. New items, such as the wall jump technique that was first featured in Super Metroid, make appearances in the game and are incorporated into the level design. Additionally, the level design does feel more varied than in the original game, having fewer corridors which look similar and more passages that have different shapes and appearances to them. Because of this, I feel it's significantly easier to remember areas that you've been in than in the original Metroid. Unfortunately, like any other game, the hack does have some flaws. Fortunately, though, they're minor and generally negligible. While the game runs well and the level design is solid, I did run into a glitch going through the game, causing me to have to restart. Additionally, as I stated before, the built-in map is rather basic. Having extra colors or markers would have been an awesome addition. While the map is great for figuring out your relative position, it's often hard to know where you need to go next. However, this arguably isn't even a real flaw, as Metroid is all about exploration in the first place, and looking around should solve any real issues with conveyance you might have. Despite this, though, it's hard not to feel spoiled by the guidance later Metroid games provided players with on where to go next. So, is Metroid Rogue Dawn worth playing? We here at PlayerMesh think so, though mileage will certainly vary based on the player. Rogue Dawn looks and plays very similar to how an NES follow-up to Metroid in the late 1980s could have possibly been like. While the game has adhered to some modern-era game design philosophies, Rogue Dawn is very much a game reminiscent of the NES era of games. If you enjoyed how the original Metroid played and want more, you're almost certainly going to enjoy playing this, and we would absolutely recommend it. However, if you didn't, you're probably not going to get much out of this hack. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and we hope to see you next time.